Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So today I want to read The Secret Garden novel, chapter 2, Mistress Mary Quiet Contrary. Mary had liked to look at her mother from a distance, and she had thought her very pretty. But as she knew very little of her, she could scarcely have been expected to love her or to miss her very much when she was gone. She didn't miss her at all, in fact, and as she was a self absorbed child, she gave her entire thought to herself as she had always done. If she had been older, she would no doubt have been very anxious at being left alone in the world, but she was very young, and as she had always been taken care of, she supposed she always would be. What she thought was that she would like to know if she was going to nice people who would be polite to her and give her her own way as her ayah and the other native servants had done. She knew that she was not going to stay at her English clergyman's house where she was taken at first. She didn't want to stay. The English clergyman was poor, and he had 5 children, nearly all the same age, and they wore shabby clothes and were always quarreling and snatching toys from each other. Mary hated their entire bungalow and was so disagreeable to them that after the first day or two nobody would play with her. For the second day they had given her a nickname which made her furious. It was Basil who thought of it first. Basil was a little boy with impudent blue eyes and turned up nose, and Mary hated him. He was playing by herself under a tree just as she had been playing the day cholera broke out. She was making heaps of earth and pots for a garden, and Basil came and stood near to watch her. Presently, he got rather interested and suddenly made a suggestion. Why don't you put a heap of stone there, pretend it is a rockery, he said, there in the middle. And he leaned over her to point. Go away, cried Mary. I don't want boys, go away. For a moment, Basil looked angry, and then he began to tease. He was always teasing his sisters. He danced round and round her and made faces and sang and laughed. Mistress Mary, quiet, contrary, how does your garden grow? With silver bells and cockle shells and marigolds all in a row. He sang it until the other children heard and laughed too. And the crazy Mary got the more they sang Mistress Mary quite contrary. And after that, as long as she stayed with them, they called her Mistress Mary quite contrary when they spoke of her to each other. And often, when they spoke to her, you are going to be sent home, Basil said to her at the end of the week, and we're glad of it. We are glad of it. I'm glad of it too, answered Mary. Where's home? She doesn't know where's home, said Basil, with 7 years old scorn. It's England, of course. Our grandmama lives there, and our sister Mabel was sent to her last year. You're not going to grandmama. You have known you are going to your uncle. His name is Mr. Archibald Craven. I don't know anything about him, snapped Mary. I know you don't, Basil answered. You don't know anything. Girls never do. I heard father and mother talking about him. He lives in a great big, desolate old house in the country, and no one goes near him. He's so cross, he won't let them, and they won't come if he will let them. He's a hunchback and he's hurried. I don't believe you, said Mary, and she turned her back and stuck her fingers in her ears because she would not listen anymore. But she thought over it a great deal afterward, and when Mr. Crawford told her that night that she was going to sail away to England in a few days and go to her uncle, Mr. Archibald Craven, who lived in the Misselthwaite Manor, she looked so stony and stubbornly earnest that they didn't know what to think about her. They tried to be kind to her, but she only turned her face away. When Mrs. Crawford attempted to kiss her and held herself stiffly, when Mrs. Crawford patted her shoulder, "She's such a plain child," Mrs. Crawford said pityingly. Afterward, and her mother was such a pretty creature. She had a very pretty manner too, and Mary has the most unattractive ways I ever saw in a child. The children call her Mistress Mary quite contrary. And tough, it's naughty of them. One one can't help understanding it. Perhaps if her mother had carried her my pretty face and her pretty manners oftener into the nursery, Mary might have learned some pretty ways too. It it is very sad now the poor beautiful thing is gone. To remember that many people never even knew that she had a child at all. I believe she scarcely ever looked at her. Sighed Mr. Cravat. When her ayah was dead, there was no one to give a thought to the little thing. Think of the servants running away and leaving her alone in that deserted bungalow. Colonel McGrew said that Norley jumped out of his skin when he opened the door and found her standing by herself in the middle of the room. Mary made the long voyage to England under the care of an officer's wife, who was taking her children to leave them in a boarding school. She was very much absorbed in her own little boy and girl, and was rather glad to hand the child over to the woman Mr. Archibald Craven sent to meet her in London. The woman was his housekeeper at Misselthwaite Manor, and her name was Mrs. Matlock. She was a stout woman with very red cheeks and sharp black eyes. She wore a very purple dress, a black silk mantle with jet fringe on it, and a black bonnet with purple velvet flowers which stuck up and trembled when she moved her head. Mary didn't like her at all, but as she very seldom liked people, there was nothing remarkable in that. Besides which it was very evident Mrs. Matlock didn't think much of her. "My word, she is a plain little of good," she said. And with her that her mother was beauty, she hasn't had it much of it down, has she, ma'am? Okay, that's all. Thank you for listening. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.